My stepmother hated me after she got pregnant. My dad told me it was my fault because no one hates a kid for no reason. I went missing, which caused him to be disowned. So, I'm 17F, and I always thought my stepmom Lisa was like another mom to me. Like, when my dad married her, I didn't even feel weird about it. She was so sweet, always made sure I was included, and I thought we had this great bond. I legit called her mom a few times, and it didn't even feel forced. You know when you just click with someone? Yeah, that's how it felt. At least at first. Things started changing when she got pregnant. I remember the exact moment she told me. I was actually happy for her. Super excited to have a baby brother or sister. I mean, I thought we'd be like one big happy family, you know? But that didn't last. It wasn't immediate, but I could feel her slowly pulling away from me. Like there was something wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. At first, it was little things. She'd sigh when I walked into the room or roll her eyes when I'd talk. I didn't think much of it, figuring she was just tired from being pregnant or something. But man, did it get worse fast. This all went down during the 2020 lockdowns. I had to stay with my dad because my mom's a doctor, and she was pulling insane hours, working day and night. She figured it'd be safer if I stayed with dad. At first, things were chill. We'd all watch movies, eat together, and it seemed fine. But then Lisa was like 4 months pregnant, and it's like she couldn't stand being around me anymore. Like, I'd be sitting on the couch, minding my own business, scrolling through my phone, and she'd just start snapping. "Can't you do something useful instead of sitting there all day?" she'd say, like out of nowhere. And I'm sitting there like, huh? I'd done all my chores, finished my homework, and wasn't bothering anyone, but somehow, just me existing was enough to piss her off. I started to notice that no matter what I did, it wasn't right. If I was too quiet, she'd get mad that I wasn't engaging enough. If I talked too much, she'd snap about needing peace and quiet. So, I did what any teenager would do. I stayed in my room. I barely came out unless it was to eat or help out with the house. And even then, it didn't help. One day, I remember it so clearly, I was in my room reading, and Lisa barges in. She's pissed. Like really pissed. She starts yelling that my room stinks and that it's making her feel sick. Now let me tell you, my room wasn't dirty. I'm not a slob or anything. The only thing out was a half-eaten bag of chips on my desk. That was it. But she acted like I was running a garbage dump out of my room. I tried to stay calm, even though my hands were shaking, and I told her, "It's just a bag of chips." That's all I said. But she just lost it. She started crying, like full-on sobbing. I didn't know what to do, so I just stood there, frozen. My dad, Mark, came in like he always did when Lisa was upset, and started consoling her, telling her everything would be okay and that I didn't mean to stress her out. I'm standing there like, what just happened? I didn't even do anything. But it didn't matter. Dad just looked at me like I was the problem and told me to give Lisa some space. Yeah, because that was going to help. Things just kept getting worse from there. Every day felt like I was walking on eggshells. I couldn't even breathe without her getting upset about something. The smallest thing would set her off. Like one morning, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for my cereal to get soggy, because I'm weird like that and I like it soft. She walks in, sees me sitting there, and just starts grumbling about the mess in the kitchen. Now, the kitchen was spotless, okay? I had cleaned it the night before like I always do, but she starts throwing stuff around, cleaning up things that were already clean. Then she walks over to me, looks at my bowl of cereal, and literally throws it in the trash, bowl and all. I was in shock for a second, just staring at her. But then I snapped. I yelled at her, asking what her problem was, calling her an abusive B*** because I was so done with her crap. I don't know where it came from, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. And yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said what I did, but I was 17 and stressed out of my mind. Of course, Dad came running in like he always did, got between us, and tried to calm Lisa down. She was screaming at him, saying I shouldn't be in the house anymore, that I wasn't allowed near her baby when it was born. And you know what my dad said to me? The one thing that destroyed our relationship? He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You must have done something, Jenna. No one hates a kid for no reason." That was it. I was done. I knew right then that I couldn't stay there anymore. My own dad didn't believe me. He thought I was the problem. I wasn't safe in my own home, so I did what anyone would do. I posted on social media, asking if someone could let me crash at their place for a bit. I packed a bag and climbed out the window. I didn't even want to deal with facing them. Not after everything. I walked to my friend's house and turned off my phone because I couldn't handle the constant calls and messages from my dad. It wasn't until a few hours later that I texted my mom from my friend's phone, letting her know what happened. She didn't get back to me for hours because she was in surgery. When she finally called, she was furious but also worried. She told me my aunt, Rachel, would pick me up the next day and that I wouldn't have to go back to Dad's house for a while. And get this, after I left, Dad and Lisa went door to door, asking family and friends if they'd seen me. They even knocked on my friend's door, but I had already told her not to answer. When my mom told them I was safe, my dad was furious. But the rest of the family? They were pissed at him. My grandparents even stopped talking to him after that. They said they couldn't believe how he let Lisa treat me like that. Looking back, I still don't know how everything went so wrong. Lisa used to be like a mom to me, but by the time I left, she was just someone who wanted me gone. My dad still tries to fix things between us, but it's never going to be the same. I haven't talked to him in years, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. So after I left my dad's house, I thought things were going to calm down, you know? Like I'd be at my Aunt Rachel's and I could finally relax without Lisa breathing down my neck or my dad acting like I was the problem. But nope, it wasn't that easy. I remember sitting in Rachel's living room that first night. I hadn't even unpacked yet. My phone was still off and I was just sitting there, staring at it, feeling this weird mix of anger and guilt. I was pissed at my dad, obviously for basically kicking me out because of Lisa. But then, there was this little part of me that felt guilty, like I'd abandoned him. I don't know why I felt like that. Maybe because growing up, he was all I had after my mom and dad split. But then again, I had to remind myself that this wasn't my fault. None of it was. Rachel was cool though. She didn't push me to talk right away. She just gave me some space, told me I could stay as long as I needed, and made me a sandwich. Honestly, that sandwich was the best thing I'd eaten in days. Probably because I hadn't been able to stomach much food with all the stress at my dad's house. The next morning I turned my phone back on, and of course there were like 50 missed calls and texts from my dad and Lisa. I didn't read them at first. I just couldn't deal with it yet. But there was this one message from my mom that hit me hard. She said something like, "I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I should have brought you with me earlier. I didn't realize how bad it was getting." That kind of broke me a little. I didn't even realize how bad it was either until I was out of there. I had been walking on eggshells for so long that it felt normal. But seeing my mom's text made me feel like, yeah, I wasn't imagining things. This was messed up. She was still super busy with work though, so I knew I couldn't rely on her to fix things right away. About 2 days after I got to Rachel's, my dad started calling again. I let it ring out, but the voicemails kept piling up. I knew I had to listen to at least one of them, just to see what he was saying. When I finally did, my stomach dropped. "Jenna, you need to come back home. We need to talk about what happened. Lisa's really upset, and this stress isn't good for the baby. You're causing a lot of problems by staying with your aunt. It's time you came back and apologized." Apologize? Are you freaking kidding me? He wanted me to apologize? I felt my hands shaking as I held the phone. It was like he had no clue what had actually happened. It was like, in his mind, I was the one who had caused all of this. I didn't call him back. I couldn't. There was no way I was going to apologize for something I didn't do, for something that wasn't even my fault. But ignoring him didn't help either. He just kept calling, kept leaving messages. Lisa started texting too, saying how stressed she was, how she didn't know why I hated her so much, and how she just wanted peace in the house before the baby came. Rachel noticed I was getting more stressed and sat me down. She asked me straight up, "Do you want to call him back?" "No," I said, maybe a little too quickly. I guess she could tell how much I was struggling with it all, so she just nodded and said, "Okay, then don't. You don't owe anyone anything right now." And that stuck with me. I don't owe them anything. Still, the messages from my dad and Lisa kept coming, and eventually, it was too much. I blocked their numbers. It felt drastic, but I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't ready to talk to them, and their constant nagging was messing with my head. I just needed time. Blocking them worked for a bit, but then they started calling my aunt. Rachel answered one of the calls one night while we were watching TV, and I could hear her voice getting angrier by the second. "No, Mark, she doesn't want to talk to you right now. No, this isn't about Lisa. It's about how you treated your daughter. I don't care about your side of the story, Mark. What matters is how Jenna feels. You can't force her to come back if she's not ready." She hung up the phone, and I could see the frustration in her eyes. She turned to me and said, "He doesn't get it, Jenna. He just doesn't get it." I nodded. I knew he didn't. He was so wrapped up in protecting Lisa and their unborn kid that he couldn't see what he was doing to me. It was like I didn't matter anymore. That's when I decided I needed to get my stuff out of Dad's house for good. There was no way I was going back to live there, not after everything that had happened. I asked Rachel if she could help me pack up my room, and she agreed. We went over one afternoon when my dad and Lisa were out. I didn't want to deal with the confrontation. I just wanted to get my things and leave. When we got there, though, I noticed something weird. My room looked different. Like, it wasn't a mess or anything, but it didn't look like my room anymore. Some of my stuff was missing, and there was a pile of baby things stacked in the corner. I turned to Rachel, and she gave me this look like, "What the hell is going on?" It hit me right then. They were already planning to turn my room into the baby's room. I hadn't even been gone that long, and they were already moving my things out to make space for the baby. I felt sick to my stomach. It was like I had been replaced. We packed up everything I had left in that house, and I didn't look back. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave anything for them to find. I just walked out, feeling like I was leaving part of myself behind. But I also knew it was the right thing to do. I couldn't stay in a place where I wasn't wanted. After that, my relationship with my dad was basically non-existent. He didn't try to contact me much after we cleared out my room. I think he realized that I wasn't coming back. It was hard, though. I missed him, or at least I missed the dad I used to have, the one who actually cared about me. But that dad was gone, replaced by someone who only cared about Lisa and the baby. Rachel was great, though. She never made me feel like a burden, and she always had my back when it came to dealing with my dad. Even though everything was a mess, I felt like I had someone in my corner, and that made all the difference. So after I cleared my stuff out of Dad's house, I figured things would calm down. You know, like I'd finally be able to move on with my life, and they'd just leave me alone. But of course, it didn't work out that way. It never does, right? I was trying to settle into a new routine at my Aunt Rachel's, but honestly, my brain was still kind of a mess. I was angry, frustrated, and weirdly enough, kind of sad. I missed my dad, even though I knew he wasn't the same dad I grew up with. I missed having a family that felt normal. I don't know how to explain it, but everything just felt upside down. Then one day, about a week after I moved in with Rachel, I get this call from my mom. Now she doesn't usually call me out of nowhere since she's always busy with work. So I pick up and she goes, "Hey Jenna, your dad called me." I froze. "What did he say?" I asked, not sure if I even wanted to know. She sighed, and I could already hear the exhaustion in her voice. "He's asking about you. Says he's worried. He wants to talk." I almost laughed at that. Worried? Now he's worried? After all the crap that went down, now he's suddenly concerned about me? "Yeah, well, I'm not interested," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I figured," she said. And there was this pause, like she was debating whether or not to tell me something else. Then she added, "He asked me to mediate, like he wants us all to sit down together and have a talk." I couldn't believe it. My dad actually thought that after everything, I'd be down to have some kind of family meeting, like it was just a little misunderstanding that could be fixed with a chat. "No way," I told her. "There's nothing to talk about. He made his choice, Mom. He chose Lisa and the baby over me. That's it." "I get it, Jenna. Trust me, I do," she said softly. "But he's still your dad. And I think he's realizing what he did was wrong. Maybe he just doesn't know how to fix it." That line just pissed me off even more. Why does everyone think you can just fix things after you've messed them up so bad? Like a quick apology, or a talk is going to magically make all the damage disappear. I wasn't buying it. "I'm not ready," I said. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready." My mom didn't push it. She's always been pretty good about not forcing me into stuff I'm not comfortable with, which is probably why I get along better with her than I do with Dad. She just said, "All right, I'll tell him, but if you ever change your mind, you let me know." After that call, I felt like everything started bubbling up again. All the crap I had shoved down came rushing back, and it hit me hard. I spent the next couple days just lying around, barely talking to anyone. Rachel noticed, of course, and she tried to get me out of the house, but I wasn't feeling it. I was just tired. Tired of the drama, tired of feeling like I was the problem. And then, out of nowhere, Lisa decided to pop back into my life. I didn't see it coming at all. One afternoon, I get this notification that I had a message request on Facebook. I clicked on it, and there it was. A long-ass message from Lisa. My heart started racing. I hadn't heard from her directly since I left, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to open it. But curiosity got the best of me, and I started reading. It was this long, drawn-out apology, filled with all the usual crap people say when they know they've screwed up. She went on and on about how she was sorry for the way things had happened, how she didn't mean to hurt me, and how her pregnancy had messed with her emotions. She even had the nerve to say that she hoped one day we could all be a family again. I stared at the screen, fuming. It's like she didn't get it. She was treating the whole thing like it was some emotional blip, like her pregnancy hormones had turned her into a monster for a few months. And now, everything could just go back to how it was. I didn't respond. I didn't even know what to say, honestly. I just closed the message and turned my phone off. I couldn't deal with it. It felt like every time I tried to put some distance between us, they found a way to drag me back in. That night, I talked to Rachel about it. She was as pissed as I was. "She's just trying to cover her own ass," Rachel said, shaking her head. "She wants to act like it's all water under the bridge, but she doesn't want to take real responsibility for what happened." "I know," I said. "It's like she's sorry, but only because she got called out for it." Rachel nodded. "Exactly. She doesn't want to face the consequences, so she's trying to smooth things over with an apology. It's all about making herself feel better." And that's what bothered me the most. It felt like everything they were doing, my dad wanting a talk, Lisa's apology, it was all about making them feel better. They weren't really thinking about what I needed. They just didn't want to feel guilty anymore. I decided to block Lisa after that. I wasn't interested in hearing more excuses or fake apologies. I was done, or at least I wanted to be done. But then, a few days later, I got another message, this time from one of my cousins. Let's call her Emma. Emma was one of those cousins who always tried to play peacekeeper in the family. She meant well, but honestly, she never really understood when to back off. Her message was all about how she had talked to my dad and Lisa, and how they were both really sorry. She said something like, "Family is family, Jenna, and it's important that we try to work things out, especially now that the baby's coming." That last part hit a nerve. Like, what? The baby is coming, so now I have to forget everything that happened? I snapped. I called Emma and let loose. I told her that I didn't care if the baby was coming or not, that I didn't owe them anything, and that I wasn't going to just forgive and forget because it was convenient for them. She tried to calm me down, but I wasn't having it. "Tell them to stop trying to guilt trip me into talking to them," I said before hanging up. After that, I felt drained. I thought leaving my dad's house would give me some peace, but it felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the mess. Rachel sat with me that night, and we just talked for hours. She didn't have all the answers, but she reminded me that I wasn't alone in this. And that helped, even if just a little. I thought blocking Lisa and ignoring my dad's attempts to talk would give me some peace, you know? But no. It's like the more distance I tried to create, the more they tried to invade my life. You'd think after everything they would have just let me be, but clearly that was asking too much. One day, I'm chilling at my Aunt Rachel's house, minding my own business, when my phone starts buzzing. It's this random number, and for some dumb reason, I decide to pick up. Big mistake. "Hey Jenna, it's your dad." I nearly dropped my phone. He hadn't called me from a random number before, so I wasn't expecting it. I just stood there, silent, while he kept talking. "I know you've blocked me, but I had to reach out. We need to talk about this. I don't like how things ended. I think it's time we try to fix this." There it was again. Fix this. Like, what did he think this was? A broken chair we could glue back together? I stayed quiet, hoping he'd get the hint and stop, but he just kept going. "Look, Jenna, I get that you're upset, but this is hurting Lisa. She's really struggling, and now with the baby almost here, she's more stressed than ever." Oh, right. Because it's all about Lisa, I thought, rolling my eyes. I had heard this same story 100 times already, how Lisa was struggling, how she needed peace, how her pregnancy was making everything hard. But what about me? Where was my peace in all this? "I think we should sit down and have a real conversation," he continued. "Just you, me, and Lisa. Maybe your mom too if she's free. We can all sit down like adults and talk this out." I couldn't hold it in anymore. "No, Dad. We're not sitting down and talking like adults because you haven't treated me like one this whole time. You and Lisa kicked me out like I didn't matter, and now you want me to pretend that didn't happen because it's convenient for you? I'm not doing this." I could hear him sigh on the other end. "It's not like that, Jenna. We didn't kick you out. Things just got complicated. You don't understand what it's like being pregnant and—" I cut him off. "Yeah, I don't understand because I'm not the one who's pregnant, but I do understand being treated like crap, and I'm not coming back for more of that. I'm done with it, Dad." He went quiet for a second, and I thought maybe, just maybe, he was finally getting it. But then he came back with, "Jenna, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Lisa didn't mean to hurt you. She was going through a lot with the pregnancy and—" I hung up. I couldn't listen to another word. It was always the same excuses. Always about Lisa and how she didn't mean it or didn't realize what she was doing. Well, guess what? Intentions don't change the fact that she did hurt me, and my dad let her do it. I tossed my phone on the bed and sat down, trying to calm myself down. My heart was racing, and I felt that familiar pit of anger bubbling up in my chest. Why couldn't they just leave me alone? Why was it always me who had to fix things? Later that night, Rachel noticed I was off and asked what happened. I told her about the call, and she just shook her head. Jenna, your dad doesn't get it. He's too wrapped up in Lisa and this baby to see things clearly. You've done everything you can to set boundaries, but if he's not respecting them, that's on him, not you. She was right, but it still sucked. I wanted my dad to understand, but he didn't. He couldn't. Or maybe he just didn't want to. I tried to move on after that call. I blocked the new number he called from and told Rachel I didn't want to talk about it anymore. But deep down, it was eating me up. I kept thinking about how things used to be, how I used to have this great relationship with my dad. We weren't super close, but we got along, and I always felt like he had my back. But now, it was like I didn't even know him anymore. A few days later, things took another turn. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I saw a new Facebook post from my cousin Emma. Now, remember how she'd been trying to play peacemaker and all this? Well, she had tagged me in a post about family unity or some crap like that. It was this long post about how families need to stick together through thick and thin, and how holding on to anger only hurts everyone involved. I almost threw my phone across the room. I knew she was talking about me. It was like she couldn't just mind her own business. I was fuming. I texted her immediately. What the hell is this post about? If you've got something to say to me, just say it. Don't go posting passive-aggressive crap on Facebook. She responded pretty quickly, saying, I didn't mean anything by it, Jenna. I just think maybe it's time you and your dad try to work things out. He's your dad, and he loves you. I hate seeing our family like this. I took a deep breath, trying not to explode. Emma, with all due respect, you don't know the half of what I went through. And honestly, it's none of your business. I'm not ready to make up with my dad, and you trying to guilt trip me into it isn't helping. She didn't text back after that. I blocked her too. I was tired of people trying to force me into something I wasn't ready for. That night, I sat with Rachel, just venting. I told her how it felt like everyone was ganging up on me, trying to make me feel like the bad guy because I didn't want to talk to my dad. You're not the bad guy, Jenna, Rachel said firmly. You're protecting yourself. People don't understand because they weren't there. They didn't see how bad things got with Lisa. You did what you had to do to take care of yourself, and that's okay. Her words hit me hard. For so long, I'd been carrying this weight, feeling like I had to justify why I left. But hearing her say it out loud, that I wasn't wrong for leaving, made me realize something. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not my dad, not Lisa, not Emma, nobody. I had done what was best for me, and if people couldn't understand that, it was their problem, not mine. After all the drama with my dad, Lisa, and even Emma, I figured things would stay quiet for a while. I mean, I had blocked everyone who was stressing me out, and I had set pretty clear boundaries. But of course, that wasn't the end of it. Life's never that simple, right? So about a month after everything went down, I get a text from my mom. At first, I was worried it was going to be more stuff about my dad, but it wasn't. She just said, "Hey, I'm coming home next week. I thought we could have dinner, just the two of us." Now, I love my mom, but we hadn't exactly been super close these past few years. She's always been working long hours, and with the divorce from my dad, things between us got a little distant. So when she suggested dinner, I was kind of surprised, but at the same time, I was looking forward to it. After everything that had happened, I felt like I could use some time with her. We ended up meeting at this little Italian place we used to go to when I was a kid. It felt weird, like this awkward mix of nostalgia and new beginnings. I hadn't seen her in person in months since she'd been so busy with work. But when I walked in and saw her sitting at the table, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. She stood up and gave me a hug, and for the first time in a long time, I actually felt safe, like things were going to be okay. We sat down, ordered some food, and just started talking. At first, it was all small talk, how work was going, what I'd been up to at Rachel's. But then, of course, the conversation turned to my dad. "So," she said, poking at her salad with her fork, "how have things been with your dad since everything happened?" I knew it was coming, but still, I didn't want to talk about it. I just sighed and said, "Not great. He keeps trying to contact me, but I've blocked him, and Lisa too." She nodded, but didn't say anything right away, which I appreciated. I think she knew I needed to get it all off my chest, so I just kept talking. "It's like he doesn't get it, Mom. He thinks I should just forgive and forget, like none of it mattered. Like I didn't go through hell living with them." My mom put her fork down and looked me in the eye. "You don't owe anyone anything, Jenna. Not even your dad. He made his choices, and you made yours. You're allowed to take the time you need to heal, And if that means cutting him out, that's your right. Hearing her say that hit me hard. I'd been carrying this guilt around like I was somehow being selfish for not wanting to deal with my dad. But my mom made me realize that it wasn't selfish at all. It was survival. I needed to protect myself from the people who had hurt me, even if one of those people was my own father. We talked for a while longer, and by the time dinner was over, I felt a lot lighter. I wasn't magically healed or anything, but it was a start. Having my mom on my side, fully understanding what I'd been through, made me feel less alone. After that dinner, things with my dad finally quieted down. Maybe he realized I wasn't going to come around anytime soon, or maybe he was just too wrapped up in Lisa and the baby to keep trying. Either way, the silence was a relief. For the first time in months, I could actually breathe. But then the baby was born. I found out through Facebook, of course. My dad had posted this long, cheesy announcement about the birth of my new half-brother, Ethan. There were pictures of him and Lisa in the hospital, holding this tiny baby, both of them smiling like nothing was wrong in the world. I just stared at the pictures for a while, feeling this weird mix of emotions. Part of me was happy for them, I guess. I mean, a new baby is a big deal, and I didn't want to be a complete heartless jerk about it. But another part of me was angry that my dad could move on with his new life so easily, while I was still stuck picking up the pieces of our relationship. The worst part? He tagged me in the post. Yep, right there, at the bottom of the post, was a little tag with my name on it. Like I was part of this happy family moment, even though I hadn't spoken to my dad in months. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just untagged myself, logged off Facebook, and tried to pretend I hadn't seen it. But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about how my dad had this new life now, this new family, and I wasn't part of it. A few days later, Rachel noticed I was off and asked what was going on. I told her about the post, and she just shook her head. Jenna, you don't have to be part of his new life if you don't want to be. You've done enough. You've been through enough. He can't force you to be part of something you're not comfortable with. She was right, but it didn't make it any easier. I felt like I was in this constant battle between what I wanted and what I thought I should want. Like, part of me felt like I should try to be involved with my new half-brother, because he was family, right? But the other part of me wanted nothing to do with any of it. In the end, I decided to do what was best for me. I wasn't ready to be part of my dad's new life, and I wasn't going to force myself into a situation that made me uncomfortable. Maybe one day, I'd reach out to my half-brother. Maybe when he was older, I'd get to know him. But for now, I needed space. I blocked my dad on Facebook after that post. I didn't want to see any more pictures, any more updates about their perfect little family. I didn't need the constant reminder that I had been pushed aside for something better. It was hard, but it was necessary. These days, things are quieter. My life isn't perfect, but it's mine. I'm working on myself, trying to figure out who I am outside of all the family drama. Rachel's been amazing, and I'm so grateful to have her in my life. I don't know where I'd be without her. As for my dad and Lisa, well, who knows? Maybe one day we'll talk again. Maybe not. I'm not making any promises. I'm just taking things one day at a time, and right now, that's enough for me.